recording?
We are live. Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
We have another very special episode. We have the 2016 movie Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Yeah.
Nathan, do you have a history of Rogue One, a Star Wars story?
Me and my son went and saw this the theaters.
Yeah.
So I remember that. I know it has a very cool trailer because they use the Imperial like warning hoot is like the tone for the trailer.
Oh yeah, like as they cut to different scenes and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's a very well done trailer. And the trailer makes the movie it's like, oh, the movie is actually as cool as what the trailer shows.
And there's a bit in the trailer that's not in the movie.
Yeah.
Where the TIE fighter like comes up behind her on the antenna array or whatever.
Yeah, well, I was looking for that in the movie. I was like, when is that going to happen? This movie had interesting cycle of production.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, it's almost seen as like the redheaded stepchild of like the Star Wars stuff, but now it's like, now I feel like it's turned around completely where it's like, this might be one of the best Star Wars movies ever made.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because it's like, because I'm one of those guys where it's like, well, it's Empire Strikes Back and Rogue One. Like those are the best Star Wars movies. All the rest of them are entertaining, but those are the really good ones. And then like the prequel series to this, Andor, is like, yeah, it's probably some of the best Star Wars TV ever made. Well, there's just something about this story that draws people in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I think like, what it's doing best is that it's just getting away from the Force stuff and the like, all the Force stuff, because it's the Sith or it's the Jedi fighting each other, and it's just all peasants in between. It's like, well, what if it's just all peasants and like and sci-fi stuff? It's like, it's kind of more interesting. It kind of seems more like affecting your life in some way.
Yeah, we're not waiting for this like wizards with laser swords to settle all our problems. We have to do this ourselves. And it's dark and sad, and yeah, and everyone dies.
Although I think one of the things I like about this movie, I guess, it's like, well, it's one of the few movies where it's like, well, for this movie to be special, everyone has to die, and they do, and it's like, oh, that's I'm satisfied with everyone dying.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But I actually conflated something, because I always remember it's like Mon Mothma talking about like, was it like many Bothans died to get us this information? But that's from Return of the Jedi. That's not from Star Wars: A New Hope. So I conflated that. So
a lot of people did. Explain it like that. It's like, oh, okay, yeah.
Because like as soon as I knew this was a movie, it's like, well, they all have to die for this to be important, because that's what they said happened. So apparently it happened twice.
Yeah.
We're gonna get Rogue 2, all the Bothans getting the info on the second Death Star. Yeah, I remember also this like, I remember people talking about like it made like $1 billion worldwide, but I remember like it seemed like Star Wars investors or Disney investors seemed disappointed in like the money this movie made.
It's like, oh, it cost $300 million. It's like, oh.
And I think that's one of the reasons like or maybe one of the reasons what happened with the Han Solo movie, where it got taken away from Lord and Miller because it was like getting too expensive, and so they just gave it to Ron Howard instead. And like even compared to have you even watched Rise of Skywalker yet?
No, never have.
Holy shit. Okay, so
yeah, I'm holding out. I mean,
you don't know like how much like the well, you know how bad it is. I told you how bad it is. But
yeah,
it's like,
I mean, you've explained it to me.
But it's still like when you watch it, it's like, this is unbelievably terrible.
Who directed that? What? Is he too just trying to flip the audience off, or yeah, I've heard. I mean, it's been explained to me enough that if I watched it, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I probably know the story by now because just by osmosis, like I know what the uh, I'm thinking Skinwalker Ranch. I know what the Red Letter Media guys think of it, so it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's probably on point.
Yeah.
So no, yeah, it just never occurred to me to watch back, even back when I had Disney Plus. Yeah, I was like,
I mean,
yeah, I'm just not watching that.
it was like one of the last movies I think I saw in theaters. I can't remember. Well, yeah, when did that come out? Was that like pre-pandemic?
I think so.
Yeah, 2019. So yeah,
Okay.
I know the last movie I saw in theaters was, oh crap, what is it? It was like the Harley Quinn movie where it's her and like a couple other girls fighting Ewan McGregor. I can't remember what it's called.
Oh yeah, I don't know what that one is.
What is that? It's something birds or whatever. Birds of Prey, I think, is what it's called.
Oh, okay. I have heard of that. Haven't seen it, but
Yeah, Birds of Prey. So, yeah. It has like some weird subtitle too, like the Birds of Prey, the fantabulous emancipation of the one Harley Quinn. it's okay. um, but yeah, and then then also I remember hearing like terrible things about the Han Solo movie, and you watch it, it's like this is it's got a lot of annoying like fan service stuff in it, but it's like a fine, likable movie.
yeah, I found that to be generally entertaining. Like there was nothing wrong with it. I think it could have been darker, but
Well, I was just mad we didn't get the Lord and Miller movie because it's like those guys are like fantastic. It's like, yeah, give them all the money. Let's just see what happens. And they're like, no, what if we didn't?
yeah.
They got something crazy coming out. What are they working on? I forget what they're working on right now, but I remember being like, oh, they're actually giving them money. Is it Phil Lord? Yeah, that must be it. Yeah, Lego movie. What are they working on? That's all. Oh, they're working on Project Hail Mary.
Okay.
The the Martian guy book.
The Andy Weir book,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Andy Weir book, yeah. So yeah, they're in post production, so it's in the bag. So that should be interesting. It's got Ryan Gosling.
Should be interesting. It was kind of a weird book. It was cool at the same time, but weird.
Yeah,
It included a lot of dark Well, remember, I wanted to make it like the end of like Event Horizon. He goes back to Earth, and he's like, "Well, you remember the one girl that requested a gun, and he just shoots the lady that forced him to go." And we just cut to the was it the Prodigy soundtrack? I didn't think it was going to go that way.
Yeah, this is directed by Gareth Edwards. This is him coming off of Godzilla, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Which I really liked, but that was another one that seemed like people were disappointed in the returns in that. And then they went on to make 5 more of those movies. So
another one with another movie with a great trailer.
Yeah. I should probably just watch The Creator because like I love so many of this guy's movies, but I've heard so many indifferent and mixed things about that movie that I'm like, I must be at the lowest expectation now that movie will probably be completely fine.
Yeah.
But I'm always of the it's just weird. It's like it seems like everybody should be like fighting over themselves to get Gareth Edwards to make a big budget movie, and it seems like nobody is.
Yeah.
But also seems like what
he likes to work with like kind of original idea properties, even though Star Wars Rogue One was a Star Wars universe thing, but it's like, well, that he's not like bringing in known characters, so he can just kind of tell his own Star Wars stuff. And Monsters was totally like his own thing. I think he actually made that up. And then Godzilla was like, well, this has been around a while, but yeah, go nuts. Go with a 21st century production team. Let's see what we can do here. And then his next one is Jurassic World Rebirth, which I probably won't watch. So
yeah, I don't. I completely. I mean, I watched that the the new reboot, and I never watched the next two because of like they always just look completely awful to me. And then that's one of those where it's like, oh, finally a Red Letter Media I can watch because I'm never gonna bother to see this movie, and that's the only Red Letter Media stuff I watch is when it's something I know I'm never going to see. So, which is disappointing, but yeah, those guys are too good that if we watch them, we'll just parrot what they say poorly. So
Yeah.
we need to have our own vague ideas that we can't construct well. So
I need my own inarticulate ramblings where I may or may not be drinking too much while the show's going on.
Yeah. Gareth Edwards directed. Cinematographer is like, what is this? Grieg? Is that Grieg Fraser? Is this just? Oh, he's Australian. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, wasn't the last? Yeah, because last week was Mad Max Fury Road, so that's all Australia. Yeah. So yeah, this guy's done. He's done the last two Dune movies, so it's like, okay, yeah, this guy's. Which I think he won best cinematography for those, or at least one of them. Maybe.
Probably would. It's what they say about Dune 2, it's like it's perfectly shot. Like it's like multiple people have said that. So yeah.
Let's see. What other?
Yes, he won the Academy Award for the first Dune, best cinematography.
I did like Zero Dark 30, Foxcatcher.
Oh, okay.
Vice. He worked on The Mandalorian, and then, yeah, the two Dune movies, the recent Batman, the Batman movie, and he worked with Gareth Edwards again to do The Creator. So,
okay.
So he's a pretty good cinematographer. So let's see what's upcoming. What's we got here? Oh, he's working on Project Hail Mary. That must be where I got that from. Okay. Okay. And the Batman Part 2, pre-production slated for 2026. Although so's Project Hail Mary. That's slated for 2026. So I'm guessing that's huge special effects behind that, being that
gotta be
in post-production, and it's like 2 years away from release. Well, I mean, the year's almost over, so a year and 2 months. So well, they're not going to release it in January, so I'm guessing a year and 8 months.
Yeah, but probably.
Written by Chris Weitz and Tony Gilroy, who is the older brother of Dan Gilroy, which we did Nightcrawler.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, you said it was the Gilroy family of.
Yeah.
Tony
here went on to do the Andor television series, which might be like, I don't know. I'm putting a lot of hype. At least it was a great short first season, and but it seems like some of the best Star Wars stuff that's ever existed. So.
Yeah. Very slow starting, but boy, once it gets going, there's just a lot to remember. Like I've watched so many The Mandalorian's good. I can't tell you. Like I just generally enjoy it. It's almost like background noise. I can tell you things about Andor that like stuck with me. Like when they finally get out of prison and it's like, jump, you got to get off the platform. And the guy's like, I can't swim. Like you made it that far just to die. The whole series is like that. It's just one awful thing after another.
But the jailbreak's pretty like crazy because it's like there's like a meteor shower or something in between stuff blowing up and they're like trying to escape, and it's like pretty amazing. And there's just immediately betrayal after that. So, yeah. Tony's like, he's known for Michael Clayton and the Bourne franchise. He's a pretty good screenwriter, but we're gonna have to get to Michael Clayton at some point because that's under my suspicion. Because I remember not liking that movie as much as everyone said it was the best movie ever made. So.
Definitely gonna have to revisit that one.
But that could just be chalked up to like, you got to be 40 to watch this movie. Then it all makes sense. So I was listening to a podcast and they were watching Young Frankenstein, and they just said like, man, they had they talk about like liking all of Mel Brooks's other stuff, but that one like they didn't like so much, and they were like, well, maybe because it was just black and white and they were kids, and that just meant old, and it meant it wasn't good. And it was like more subdued than the craziness of his other films. And but I guess if you watch it as an adult, it's like, oh, this is hilarious. Just little things stand out more. What about Chris Weitz? What has he done? I think he writes with Tony Gilroy a lot. Oh no, I guess not a lot. Maybe this is the only time he seems more like a producer than a screenwriter.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he worked with. Oh, okay. So yeah, so there's another crossover here because Chris here goes on and works. He writes the screenplay for The Creator, which Gareth Edwards directed.
Okay.
So another crossover there.
And he also works in game development and comic books.
Oh, okay.
So he's a creative force between a lot of behind a lot of stuff.
So I get so that's a screenplay. There's a story by John Knoll and Gary Whitta, and these are ands. I mean, these teams wrote them together, but and so I don't personally know Gary Whitta, but he was like he was a video game journalist, and he was like on Giant Bomb stuff a bunch.
Yeah.
So it's like it seemed like I more personally knew Gary Whitta than other people, and so he wrote like the Book of Eli. Like he became a screenwriter at some point, and like I remember him talking about rumors like we're doing a movie about the people that get the Death Star plans, and this was like like 6 years before this movie comes out. And it's like, oh, he's working on it. Like, I know this thing. And then it comes out. It's like, wait, he didn't write it? And so I have no fucking idea what went on there. Maybe it was politicking. Maybe his script sucked. I have no idea. Book of Eli is like, totally fine. His other stuff that got made doesn't seem that great. But maybe that's just like, maybe that sometimes your stuff of yours that gets made, it isn't indicative of your talent. It's just something that meets a quota or whatever, and it gets made magically. It's like, why does all my shit get made and all my good stuff is like it never gets made? So, sometimes that can happen. So, but as far as I know, Gary Whitta a good dude. So, but that's like the only story by thing. Well, I think we've maybe had other stories about story by stuff being weird, but
oh yeah, there's so many scripts that get thrown around. That's yeah.
Because sometimes the story by stuff seems like they came up with an outline, handed it to a writer team, and then they just like get credit like that. But I don't know like what a story by credit does. Is that just literally like you have a credit, or does that like come with a paycheck, or what's going on here? Because like as far as I know, he wrote a full-on screenplay. They discarded it and wrote a new screenplay and gave him a story by credit. So,
yeah.
And the cast is Felicity Jones, Diego Luna, and Alan Tudyk as a voice character getting third billing here. Because yeah, really like this kind of is a no-name cast. I don't know. I mean, they have like known people in bit roles like Mads Mikkelsen and Forrest Whitaker, but like you even got Jimmy Smits in there and stuff. But like the main cast is like, did you know them from anything else? When they, okay.
No idea, except for the guy who played Bodhi, the pilot. He was in Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
It's like I recognize, like, oh, I remember him from Nightcrawler. Alan Tudyk, I know, he's just the guy from Serenity and all those other movies.
Yeah.
And of course, Mads Mikkelsen from every like weird, Netflix Euro film about a serial killer and or criminal in there. So yeah, it's like some of these names I recognized. I did not know who Felicity Jones was, and I did not know who Diego Luna was, but they've since like gone on to do other things that I know them in. The guy I liked the most was the guy who played Krennic.
Oh,
he's been in a lot of things.
What was that?
Ben Mendelsohn.
Okay,
but it's weird at the end. It's Sohn.
Oh, okay.
He has a very distinctive American accent when he does it because he's actually Australian, but when he uses an American accent, he has a cadence and way of talking that's kind of funny. He doesn't do it here, but he does it in what was that? He was the one of the aliens in that Invasion show that was part of the Avengers universe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which was kind of like a good bad show.
Now, does he? I don't think I've seen him in other things. Oh wait, no, Nathan, that was a bad show. Don't worry.
Oh, I watched it, and I was like, well, there's elements I like, but I don't.
Oh
love
wow,
it.
they're killing off a lot of main characters. I hope this goes somewhere.
Yeah, no, I know that didn't- but I like this guy's performance.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen him in anything. I've heard the name before, but does he kind of like talk with a lisp? Like, is that his natural voice, or did he do?
Yeah, he chews words.
Okay.
The way he does, so I guess maybe it's a lisp. A lisp. I don't know, but it's like the way he talks. He's kind of like his mouth seems to be moving more than what he's saying, and he has this very flat delivery.
Yeah.
So it's like you always remember he's good at playing sinister characters or smart characters.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not necessarily a lisp, but it is something slightly abnormal. So I didn't know if that was an affect that he puts on the character, or if that's like just kind of
No, he actually, I'm looking at it now. He does have a lisp, had a speech impediment his whole life. So
Okay.
it's like, oh, and he going to acting. Interesting. It's like hell with that disability. That's probably why it's like, yeah, this guy's unique line delivery and a way of talking. I thought it was something he was doing. He's like, no, he's just compensating for a handicap. It's like, kind of lets the air out of the balloon a little bit, but does a good job.
I don't know. Like, I could like half of Gary Oldman's characters like kind of sound like this guy. So, but he's doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
I don't know what other preamble for this movie. So yeah, I guess we'll just get into it. So Act 1, titles a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So you gotta stick with that. But we don't. But we don't go into these. What are they called? What's
the rolling credits?
Rolling credits, or it's not really credits. It's like
I call it the crawl or whatever.
Yeah, but it's not. But it's not like who's starring in the movie. It's like the telling you what's going on. I don't remember why. That's a very simple phrase, and I can't remember what that means. We're just what's that called?
Exposition.
Yeah, no. I mean, yes, that's exactly what it is, but I forget.
I mean, yeah, it's like Blade Runner did at the beginning of Blade Runner.
Yeah,
too.
and there's a name for that now. I don't know. It's very simple, and just podcast brain right now. I can immediately forget what it's called.
Of course. I got all these great points to make, and I get on the show, and I'm just staring off into like a lunatic. It's like, is he participating?
Smash cut to a planet, pan up to the stars. We get a ship that is flying above the rings of a planet. This looks really cool, and it's hard to tell what's going on at first. So it's like, this might be the best cinematography in any Star Wars movie.
Yeah, it probably. I could say yeah.
There's so many things that are very striking. It does have a more like. There's a lot more like, what do you call that? Like focal length to stuff. There's more stylization. It's sort of muted colors, but it still has high contrast. There's more things with dirt on them in a way, but it still kind of looks clean in a way. It's like clean dirt on things.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I feel like there's so many things in this movie where like, especially like the Star Destroyers. Like a Star Destroyer has never looked better than this movie.
Yeah.
And that's full CGI. Like you think you'd have more or at least I would have more nostalgia for the models of the Star Destroyers, but no, this thing is impeccable. Maybe they did. For all I know, they did do a model. I don't know. Maybe it's full CGI. I don't know. Because I imagine ILM had to work on this. So.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah.
And then an Empire ship lands on a planet, which this is kind of like the extra evil Empire shuttle, before it's kind of like the duck-billed white one in like Return of the Jedi. This is like the darker version of it.
Oh yeah, the more intimidating looking one.
Because they have like the folding wing stuff here, where like, which was always cool. Even
Yeah.
though it made absolutely no sense. You don't need those wings in out of atmosphere, and they don't work in atmosphere. What are they doing? They're there to look cool.
Fuel storage.
It's always one of my favorite moments in all of television when the Battlestar Galactica like FTLs into in orbit into in atmosphere. You're like, whoa, can that thing fly in the atmosphere? Nope.
Yeah, that was one of the coolest things ever conceived. Because they did it so they could launch planes like within, basically it was like within the firing arc. So because the Cylons like couldn't defend against that because it was right on top of them, I guess. It just looked cool.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And then it warps out and it creates this shock wave that knocks almost everyone over because I don't know what their FTL like dynamic is, but this giant multi-ton vehicle just winked out of existence, created this huge air pocket. It's like, yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah, look at we I don't know. Yeah, I don't. It's probably a debate, but I don't know because we get some of that here because we get a Star Destroyer in atmosphere, which I don't think we've seen that before, have we?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I wouldn't anticipate that would be a thing it could do. But it seems like later Star Wars stuff that's something that will happen. It's like they're just out there, they're doing their thing.
Yeah, I mean they started doing that in Star Wars or Star Trek too.
Yeah, because Star Trek, yeah,
like the Abrams Star Trek, it's like, yeah, it's in the ocean. It's like,
yeah.
well, I guess if they can manipulate gravity and create fields that protect them from, where they can go multiple times the speed of light, they could probably like to protect the ship somehow under the water.
Yeah,
you just never thought about using starships like that before because you didn't have the budget to make it look believable until came along.
Well, and also if you're extra Star Trek nerds like we are, we'd be like, well, Voyager was the first, spacecraft built to go in atmosphere and in space.
Yeah, and they specifically said so. It was an exploration scout type vehicle.
Yeah.
That had, because that's why it had the variable, like,
the pylons, like phases or whatever. So,
yeah, because that's like you get into because they did that instead of doing the multiple warp nacelles.
Yeah,
which there's an argument like, that they would never have that. It's like Roddenberry said too, and it's like, okay, but you know why they had 4? It's like, no, it's like so they could go further without shutting down their warp drives. They would just switch from one pylon to the other because it only takes one pylon to go faster than light in Star Wars
or Star Trek.
So it's like even if one gets shut off, you can still do warp, but you have to shut off more often. That's why they had 2. Well, if you put 4 on, like the Stargazer and some of the other ones, it means you can just perpetually travel at warp and just shut one down and let it cool down and do the next one and next one next. That's never explained. And then and then people just like, oh, we're throwing 8 warp nacelles on it because it's a dreadnought or something. It's like, no, that actually doesn't have its power core would be huge then, and not necessarily it wouldn't need more warp engines unless it was doing like high phase warp. But yeah, the Voyager, the reason they adjusted is so they could change the warp envelope, which is what heated up the engine. So if they could make it really small and close, they could go further and faster.
And that was also supposed to fight against the warp was doing bad stuff to space, which they've only did in like one episode. That was a consequence.
Oh yeah, they had the new warp engines that wouldn't because it was destroying the creatures that lived in subspace. And then and they like put speed limits on everything, but that quickly interfered with the nebulous Federation economy. So they're like, well, let's develop a new warp. No problem. It's snap your fingers. And then people watch that and it's like, oh, well, here on Earth, we can solve global warming that way by just putting new power systems into everything. It's like, it's not a science fiction show. This is the real world. So, yeah, and life sucks. But, yeah, I do remember that. That kind of element went away. But that's when you just, like, read through Star Trek message boards and like people that are actual physicists and engineers argue passionately about why this is or isn't. It's like it's kind of cool because they're involved, but they're also like really smart. But everyone's talking about technology that does not exist and no one understands. But they're getting red faced about it. So that's the fun part of it all.
We see a kid running to a farm. It's a young Jin Urso. We get Galen Urso, played by Mads Mikkelsen here. He's being chased by the Empire. I'm so tainted by playing 80 hours of Death Stranding that's all I remember Mads Mikkelsen being in. I don't remember any other movie other than this. I just know that guy. So,
like I said, he's every what's a Mads Mikkelsen? There's some major performances he's done, but basically he's every like evil European like serial killer and or criminal, maybe a cop, but just the way he looks, he seems to
he can both be like the serial killer or like the dad hunting for the man who killed his wife. So. And then at the end of the movie, it's him. It's like, oh, I better kill myself. Sorry, de-res myself?
Yeah.
That's something that I can't remember if it's the term de-res or something else, but on TikTok, you can't say like suicide or kill yourself.
Yeah, it's always unalive or so. Yeah,
so now, they've started saying unalive, or they started saying unalive, but now that too is being like censored, and so now de-res is the new suicide term.
Yeah. This is such weird. That's why nothing that happens in this country anymore surprises me. It's like, oh, this is just all schizophrenia holding hands.
I mean, it's
why can you not talk about suicide as long as you're saying it's a bad thing? Don't do it. I mean, I understand if like people are doing like, let's do pro stuff, like go out and kill yourself. It's like, obviously you don't want that. If you're talking seriously about something. But it's so wild because I remember I was looking up a like punk band from the early 80s called Suicide. And as soon as I typed in suicide song, I immediately got redirected to a suicide like helpline. Like, you don't have to do it. And I was like, I don't want to. I'm looking for a band. Like, what are you talking about it?
I'm trying to seek happiness.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not. I've never
through the band Suicide.
I've never. It's all ironic to me. I don't want to die, but I'm also like a senior citizen and everything. So you never know.
So yeah, the wife talks to, what was her name? I wrote her name, was that like Lynn or something? Lyra, that's her name.
Yeah, it's like I thought it was like it reminded me of a harp.
Yeah,
that's the name.
Is Lyra a harp or is a Lyra?
No, it's like lyre is a harp.
Okay.
But it's pronounced the way you're saying it.
Okay. Lyra. It's like a spell you cast in Final Fantasy.
Yeah. This woman's either really cool or she's trying to deceive me all the time. I don't know which.
She talks to Saw Gerrera. This is played by Forrest Whitaker, which I typed in SAUL and I looked up the credits. Like, no, it's SAW. It's like, that's way stupider. But okay, good.
One of the wildest performances in the movie.
Oh yeah.
I like it. He's just walking around. He's just saying lies, deception, just off into space.
Oh yeah, Forrest Whitaker is a great actor.
Yeah, he does a great job.
I mean, I think people even forget that like he's like the inciting incident in The Crying Game.
Yeah, they do forget that. I don't, but they do.
Because that's why the guy goes to see her, because that was his girlfriend.
Yeah, and he didn't tell him like the whole thing. You're gonna love her. Trust me. You're a you're an Irish terrorist keeping a British soldier hostage. I got one for you. He was never actually gonna kill him. It was just he got run over. But yeah. Oh no, I remember that. Couldn't make that movie nowadays, but it was a great movie when it came out.
I mean, in the end, the guy's like, I guess, I guess I love you, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Love finds a way. Which, for the time it was made, seems like that was impossible. That was the ending they came up with, and not something dark and gruesome and like, steering towards the 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 Catholic Church agenda or something like that. So,
My two favorite Forrest Whitaker performances: Ghost Dog Way
yeah,
of
that's
the
what I was gonna
Sun,
mention.
which is a dumb movie except for him.
Yeah.
I'm not into the whole Jim Jarmusch thing. I know some people are like, it's secretly genius. It's like, well, keep that secret to yourself, because I've sat down for a couple of those and no. However, his performance in that is amazing.
Well, I mean, what's amazing about that movie is it's a samurai movie with like a hip hop score and like like suburban inner city 90s.
Yeah.
But like with all the trappings of like a Kurosawa movie.
Yeah. His performance in it is amazing. The way he interacts with people and talks to people, it's engaging and sad at this, because this guy's like, the protagonist of this movie is like, he's a lost soul. He wants a little bit of happiness in his life.
And I never saw that in theaters. I only saw that on cable. Like, I'm like, there's no way this made this to the theaters.
I've never seen it in theaters.
Okay. But it's like stood the test of time.
Maybe
because it's one of the dumbest titles ever exists.
Yeah. Now, but his tour de force is when he played Idi Amin in The Last King of Scotland.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that.
That movie's nuts, because Idi Amin was just like a cannibal of a human being. I think literally too. I think he literally ate his enemies. But yeah, he does such a great job of making you like and hate Idi Amin at the same time.
I think I've seen like the one scene where he like turns on the reporter and he's like, yeah, this is all fun and games, but you think you're just gonna go home and everything's like, this is just a tour, that's just a vacation for you. Like, you don't like, why are you trying to impose your morals on me? You're not gonna live here. Which is like a great thing in a scene where you're getting talked to by a psychopath and he's not wrong, but he's also wrong.
Yeah. It's like he gives you insight into the world he lives in. And that was the first movie I remember seeing James McAvoy in too. I'm sure he'd been in other ones, but I remember him specifically from that.
Galen goes out to stand before the Empire squad that comes out, which I think is this the Death Trooper squad? The Black Death Troopers?
Yeah, they're like in black armor. But I don't know what it means.
They're supposed to be like extra, because they had they had the Dark Troopers in Mandalorian, but that was like completely robots. And
yeah, those are like combat mechs. These are like special forces.
Yeah. But they have like their comms are extra weird and like kind of like inhuman, which I don't know if is like to create fear or just to be different, or like.
I think somebody really liked Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
City Guard or whatever they were, because they sounded like that, where it had that weird squelching and
it's like, here we got a lot of like the interesting contrast of like, it's very dark, but it's like you can see the green of the field, and then like it's very like what do you call that? It's like a deep focus, and it looks like a Kurosawa movie, but just like in widescreen and in colors. And even like Mikkelsen has the bun like on here, or so like it's just almost just pure samurai stuff. I mean, again, when you talk about Lucas stealing everything from Kurosawa, it's like, well, this is what he's stealing from.
It's going to be an homage to that, because this does the background and this does the foreground and background, like stuff always happening, of striking color contrasts, great costuming, and you kind of don't know who to focus on in the scene. It's always like, so yeah, it is. And if you're gonna if you're gonna steal from someone and make grandiose movies, like Kurosawa is a good one to start with.
Yeah, that was a genius move from Lucas, because it's like only him and the other film students would know what those movies were. So.
Yeah, back when he was in film school, you had to go hook up films to a like reel-to-reel film machine. Just go to like your online indie movie website. It's like, I've never seen this, and accidentally stumble upon it. Like, you didn't know what you were looking for.
Orson Krennic here is played by Ben Mendelsohn. He's like the evil Empire scientist guy. He's come to get Galen to work on the Death Star. Yeah, I'll just say that outright. Like, I don't know. Like, if, you know, I presume if you're watching this movie, you know that that's what's going on. So
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
You're not culturally aware of Star Wars. I mean, you might want to listen to this podcast under any circumstances, but this one specifically, if you don't know what Star Wars is, going to mean a lot. We're going to.
Oh yeah, I guess. Again, we're coming completely out of. Yeah, we didn't. I know there's one podcast that I listen to, and like they won't do a movie series. If they do a movie series, they always start with the first one. They won't do it out of order, which somewhat makes sense. But we just kind of do like whatever's like, whatever weird, search criteria I've created for our current.
I mean, we've only been inarticulately talking about movies with no depth to our knowledge for 15 years. We're running out of ideas. I was like, yeah, we can do like the great like French cinema or whatever. Or just go full bore Fellini and be equally as full of shit. But at least these movies like look cool and are engaging for everyone. So
I don't know. The Samurai is great. That looks cool.
yeah,
it's a cool
Samurai
movie. Even Le Cercle Rouge is a pretty cool movie. It's
I like that one a lot. I like that more than I thought I would. I wanted to go live in the 70s in France and smoke cigarettes and wear a fedora after watching that movie. And say things that sounded French. Like, I don't speak French, but
I want to get drunk and hang out with the crabs.
yeah. And I want to be weirdly grim and optimistic at the same time while I shoot someone and then like, oh, c'est la vie, you know.
What I think it sold me out of the movie is the Criterion did a trailer of that movie that was like a modern trailer for an old movie. Have you ever seen it?
Yes.
Okay, it's great.
You sent it to me because before we watched it, it's like, yeah, watch this. And that seems like a pretty modern movie. It's like, well, no, yeah.
It's
they
like
didn't do the 70s trailer. There's a man, you know. It's like, no, they just took scenes and put music in it.
It's modern music, and they took all the cool scenes, and it's like the magic of trailers where you can make a lie happen. Like the movie's still cool, but like the movie promised in the trailer is a way more modern and maybe like esoteric movie, which I guess it kind of is in some spots, but not really. It's kind of a long.
It's straight for a French movie. It's fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
It just looks really cool. And like I said, everyone's like wearing fedoras and smoking and driving big cars and living in the 70s.
But they also like take their way too much time with everything they do. So, but yeah, I was fine with it. I don't. So, oh yeah, here's where we get the great line when he's when Orson is confronting Galen. Galen says, "You're confusing terror with peace," and Orson says, "Well, you have to start somewhere."
Yeah. That's what I like about that character in this movie. It's like you're not gonna trip him up. It's like he knows where he's going.
You also have like Orson said like his wife has died, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and I don't. It's like, does he believe that? And then of course his wife immediately comes out. It's like, "Oh, back from the dead." So this is like,
yeah, I love that.
A weird play for Orson. I don't know what's going. I don't know. It's like the mind games with Orson. It's like, I'm guessing because like when you see him around his superiors, he just doesn't get to have any fun. So like when he's around like people, he's like holding hostage. He's like more like a Batman villain.
He's what you call like a product focused manager. It's like you're not going to throw any curveballs at him. Anything you say to him, it's like, yes, but of course, now we're actually doing this, right? You know, it's like, I've heard the words you said, and but we're still making like the super weapon, right? Because when it comes to genius scientists, you can't torture them. You can't like cut their fingers off. You have to like, oh yeah, I hear what you're saying, and you know, I'm sorry all this stuff's going on. But,
what would you call a product focused manager?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He's very product focused.
I think there's like a new. Well, I'm not sure if it's a new term. I'm not sure if they're interchangeable, but a term I never heard before. was like they're talking about like positions at my job, and it's more on salespeople, like focusing on specific areas rather than a general sales. It's like we're doing very focused things, and they call it like privileged focused. Like that's what they call
Okay.
it.
And that's different from an outside sales job. How? Okay.
Because they're like, they're not selling everything the company has. They're selling like essentially one product to a
Oh, okay. So they're very specifically selling
yeah,
something to a discerning clientele.
yeah. So yeah, it is more focused, but like it was like, yeah, the privilege focus thing was like what it's another one of those things, like it's a phrase that doesn't explain itself, so I'm like, well, throw that away, and they're like, no, we like it. So
I'm here to give you the, I won't say the name of your company, experience. Like, what are you offering me? An experience. We are going to take this journey together through the ins and outs of system administration, HVAC control on an almost planetary scale. And we're going to do this together. How much is it going to cost? Don't worry about it. That's stress. That will ruin the experience. By the end of our experience, you won't even question how much it costs. You'll be so happy that you're just going to explode with joy.
So there's a great phrase, because I've talked with people from other companies who do the same thing we do, and it's like it's always the same problem. Basically, it's like no company is really better or worse. It's just kind of a ebb and flow of things. But like there's a guy in Virginia, and everybody has a different take on it. But I like the way he said it. Is that because they're talking about like, we're having a problem with the system. It was like it was engineered wrong, and we can't fix it with software. So it's like, and he's like getting mad. It's like there's never enough money to do it right the first time. There's always enough money to rip it out and do it all over again.
We built this thing. It doesn't work. What do you think we should do? Take it down to the studs and do it again. Why didn't we do that the first time? Hey, progress is not.
So we're saving money the first time, and now we didn't accomplish that. So now we need to spend twice the money.
Yeah, you wanted to
to
go
do
cheap.
It wrong again.
Now, see, at first it was cheap and unsavable. Now it's expensive and partially salvageable. Good luck. Would you like to buy our extended service
plan? I want that Star Wars,
Yeah, that's the one.
The Star Wars Kevin Smith was getting up to. So.
Well, if you want to go into the wider universe of Rogue One and watch Andor, half of that is about the horror of bureaucracy and like the horror of the imperial bureaucracy and how it chokes both the people that serve it and the people that it victimizes in very similar ways.
Yeah.
And Loki is also like that. It's like, yeah, it's about the horror of like a temporal bureaucracy, either not as good at their job or very good at it, depending on who you believe and what universe you're in. Yeah. So yeah, bureaucracy is always a nightmare. But anyway, we got to get going. So
Lyra comes out, pulls a gun on Orson. Jin watches from the field. Lyra gets shot dead. Orson takes a shoulder shot. I don't know, like, how much would a laser shot hurt? Like, it kind of just like cauterize itself, right?
Yeah, that's how I assume.
Although I don't know, didn't somebody go through, like, I forget. I don't know why it's weird that people apply logic to Star Wars. Like, you could do that with Star Trek, like we were talking about, but people are talking about like the reason you can see the blaster like lights in the movie is that it's actually just firing a projectile at near light speed rather than it just being a projectile, or rather just being a light a light beam or energy beam.
Yeah, the energy weapons in Star Wars are understood to be like particle weapons. Like there is a physical force behind them beyond their just ability to decohere matter with energy. It's kind of a because that's like lightsabers, they have a physical presence to them.
Yeah.
That's why they bounce off each other. Otherwise, they just swing right through each other. They're just light energy. So yeah, all the stuff in Star Wars is like, yeah, it's like a bolt of energy with particles infused in it in some way. That's why like disintegrating people with phasers, like in Star Trek in real life, would be horrifying because water and stuff would just boil out and explode. It's like the amount of energy it would take just to completely vaporize all the liquid and your skeleton in your body would be so incredible that it would actually burn the people that were standing within 10 feet of it. But in Star Trek, they make it seem like it's just a flash and they're gone. It's like, yeah, realistically, that wouldn't happen that way.
The troopers go looking for Jin. She runs and hides in a tunnel with like a rock hatch on top of it to hide that it's a tunnel. After a long time, Saw comes and opens the hatch. Then we cut to the Rogue One titles fades. We get the Rogue One title and then it fades into the stars. It just says Rogue One. Yeah, it just says Rogue One. So
yeah,
it seemed like the Star Wars story thing was added on for like advertising to make sure nobody like mistook like, no, this is a Star Wars thing. So,
yeah, that seemed like an after the fact add-on. Like, Rogue One, a Star Wars story. It's like, oh yeah, but you know,
I mean, there is like a pretty famous Star Wars thing with the Rogue Squadron.
yes,
I think that's a book series and a video game series, which I wish they would make into a movie. That seems like a no-brainer. It's like, hey, what if Top Gun but Star Wars? Like, that sounds awesome.
yeah.
um, then we have Fate of the Stars. Then we have Jin, now played by Felicity Jones, wakes up in a jail cell. We're on the Ring of Kafrene trading outpost. Oh no, we cut to the Ring of Kafrene. This is where Cassian Andor. Does this thing show up? Does this place show up in Mandalorian? I don't know.
It looks familiar, but I don't know. I don't know.
I didn't know if it was like a place I'm supposed to know or not. I can't remember.
So many of the Star Wars universe, it's like the planet Jingle Gobble Bobble, and it's like, well, what does it mean? Nothing. It's just used for one thing.
And they just like reuse biomes. Like, we need a sand planet, but like we're tired of Tatooine, so we're going to a different sand planet. And they're like, why don't we just go back to Tatooine because everybody knows what that is. Or we're on an ice planet, but it's not Hoth. We've never gone back to Hoth. We're always going back to Tatooine. Yeah, we get Cassian Andor, whichever. I was confused at a moment. Like, isn't there a planet called Andor? Like, what's up with his name? And I was confused with Endor. So
yeah, made the same confusion.
Because like when I remember like the series is called Andor, I'm like, that's a planet, right? That's it's like, no, that's the guy. So, he's following up about a lead about kyber crystals. Which I forgot. I think that's like something to do. Like, isn't that how you make lightsabers? You need kyber crystals? Okay.
Yes, they're energy focusing crystals.
Okay. And yeah, there's speak about a planet killer. We also get speak of Saw here, and then some troopers come up, and then Andor shoots them dead. His informant starts freaking out, so then Andor just like kills him. So now we started off in a very dark place. It's like, well, we've never seen this Star Wars before where the good guy like murders people. So.
I'm with the rebellion. I'm fighting against the Empire. It's like, oh, you've become an inconvenience. I'm going to shoot you in and kind of whisper like, it's okay. It's okay. Okay.
Yeah, which again makes this immediately stand out and be way more interesting than almost any of the current Star Wars stuff going on. So. Then we cut to Jeddah, an Imperial-occupied moon. There's a guy being held hostage, and he's like looking for Saw. This is Bodhi. This is played by, I have his name written down right now, Riz Ahmed, which we last saw on Nightcrawler. Which again, that's another cross-pollination with the Gilroys. So I'm guessing. I don't know. You think the Gilroys got him this job, or is that just happenstance? Like just this like.
I mean, I always assume that these people like know each other.
Yeah.
It's you know, it's like And it's just in what kind of world you're in. I mean, you know, I've like built stuff for at work. It's like, oh, this is going to be in the you know, at the show or something, or in a commercial. It's like, it's not because Nathan's the best guy in the world, like in the area. It's like, hey, you want to do this? Sure. So it's, yeah, sometimes it's just like, it's, if you're in that orbit, it's like, hey, we got a role for you. We, you know, we like your look, and you look like kind of a nervous guy, and that's what we need.
Then we cut to Wabani, an Imperial labor camp. Here, Jin and prisoners are being transported by a ground vehicle, which, like, I feel like almost all vehicles in the Star Wars universe like hover. So this is kind of interesting that it's like a wheeled vehicle. So
Yes, that is interesting, because it's like, it's a lot easier to make them float than to put a transmission on them. But
yeah, because if you put wheels on them, then you have to build a road, so, or just have them suck going over dunes and stuff. It's like, why don't they hover? So, and then the door gets busted down by the rebels, and like they let her go, and then she immediately fights the rebels and tries to run away. So it's like, whoa, that's interesting. What's going on here? It's like she's trying to get away from the Imperials and the rebels. What does that mean? Again, immediate intrigue. It's like, I mean, that's kind of like the brilliance of the prequel Star Wars cartoon shows was actually getting to the idea that the Jedi were actually like really bad people to be like in charge of the universe.
yeah,
And like, you know, their fall was actually like just pretty much their own undoing. And like what do you call that? Oh, there's a fun word for that. Why can I?
Oh,
Oh crap! Why can't I think of that? It's a word we need.
yeah. Well,
Well, I don't want to say hearsay. That's not the right word, but
what's it like? What's it trying to communicate?
it's sort of like ironic, like, you know, you're the fall of your own demise when you're trying to do something else.
Right, it's your own worst enemy. Yeah, what would they call that?
I'm pretty sure it starts with an H. All right, we get 5 minutes. Got to figure out this words.
It's like hoisted on your own petard.
Yeah.
Oh, what else would there be?
I'm sorry, this is such an important word that I gotta find it before the podcast ends. Why can't I think of it? Hoisted on your own petard, synonym. No, not crossword, synonym.
Oh, what would that also be? Yeah, I'm totally drawing a blank. I'm sitting here looking through like thesaurus online.
No, not the opposite words of hoist. Hubris.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's excessive pride or arrogance that can lead to failure or ruin. Yes. I think there's also another word that means exactly the same thing, but yes, hubris of the character. Of the Jedi is that they thought they were saving everybody, and then they actually created the perfect opportunity to let everybody die. So. So yeah, she tries to run from the vehicle, and then she's stopped by a robot called K2SO. This is played by Alan Tudyk. He's voiced by Alan Tudyk. It's a cool
Yeah.
robot. It's probably from, I can't remember. I think this the first instance I know of this robot, but it's probably in the prequel, uh, like television or the cartoons, but I just don't remember. They have all kinds of bots in those, because it was the Clone Wars. So you're fighting all these robots. Then we cut to Yavin 4, Rebel Alliance headquarters. Jin is brought before the rebel leaders and has her rap sheet read aloud, and then they're like more interested that her father's working on the Death Star. Andor asks like when she last saw Saw.
Yeah.
Because Saw is now broken with the Alliance and has become more like more violent, which they're like I know they're like deliberately clashing with the Empire, but they don't want to like kill civilians along the way, which Saw has no problem with. So it's like Mon Mothma is there, which weird. It seems like she seems older here than she does in the Andor series, but I think that's probably just hair and makeup and lighting. So it's
Yeah, this movie looks a lot different than the later of the TV series.
yeah, but also like they have different kind of like biomes. So like where she is in the capital, it's kind of more brightly lit and uppity, like upbeat. Well, not upbeat, but just brighter and more contrast. And everybody else is living in some sort of hell. So.
Some sort of box. Yeah.
It's like like a mine that's about to like mine its last rock to be used for resources, and now the town's gonna fall apart. So yeah, she agrees to go find Saw and then go find her father because Saw knows where he is. Leia's adopted dad is there, which was it?
Bail Organa.
Yeah, Bail Organa, played by Jimmy Smits. Everybody's favorite NYPD Blue Cop. So that's all I know him from. He's been in a bunch of stuff, but like I only know him from NYPD Blue. So
yeah.
So that'd be in the end of Act 1 because I got to go find his dad and get Death Star plans and stop the Death Star. So we got Act 2. We get K2SO explains how he's a reprogrammed Imperial droid, which he has an attitude, which I guess like makes it more fun. Even though like almost every robot in the series has an attitude, but he's a bit more straightforward. Or I guess he's
very dark, kind of a sinister attitude.
Yeah.
And he's sarcastic also.
Yeah,
which...
he's like a brooding teen.
Yeah.
Andor gets side orders to kill Galen, which Jin doesn't know about. Which again, this makes the rebels more interesting. Where it's like, we're not just the good guys. We're us. We need to. It's a great scene later on where they have like backup come up to them. It's like, these guys are all like assassins and murderers. We all work for the Rebel Alliance because we have nothing left to live for. It's like, that's that's what would be in the Rebel Alliance. Also Andor doesn't want Jin to have a blaster, but she just says, "I found it," which I think that's funny. I don't even know, like, she just have it, or is there some scene where you see her like steal it from somewhere? I can't remember. So, the K2 is also like mad that she has a blaster. He's like, "You won't let me have a blaster." So. Then we cut to, we see Saw's robot legs, which he didn't have when we earlier saw him. At least I don't think so. I don't think we ever saw his feet, but he's got all sorts of weird ailments. He's basically like, he's got like almost like Darth Vader type stuff going on here. He's got like this oxygen mask. He's like has an extra raspy voice. His hair's disheveled, and he's got like 2 different like replacement legs that like walk at different cadences and stuff. So.
Yeah, he's like the half machine pretty much.
Yeah. Which is not unusual in the Star Wars franchise. So, we're introduced to Bodhi Rook here. This is Riz Ahmed. But we last saw Nightcrawler. Here he's an Imperial cargo pilot, and he got a message from Galen, and basically Galen turned him on the Empire, and so he's trying to get the message out about the Death Star, because this whole the whole plot of this movie hinges on that Galen intentionally built this flaw in the Death Star so that it could be destroyed. So, and if he didn't build it, somebody else would. So he made sure he built it with a flaw rather than somebody else not. So,
which actually it kind of explains that whole thing, because that was always like a thing from the people that were being sarcastic in the movies. It's like, why would they build something with an obvious like? It's like just put a mesh grill over that exhaust.
Then we cut to let's see here. Oh, yeah, Bodhi says he was sent by Galen, which that brings more suspicion to Saul than anything. It's like, because Saul doesn't believe in hope. So then we cut to a Star Destroyer. It comes out of darkness, which this looks so fucking cool. And then it's revealed it's like the laser array of the Death Star being put in, so it's like that's the shadows from the laser array. It's like, man, this movie looks so fucking awesome. Yeah, and it's like it's minimal. It's like two things.
Yeah.
Whereas like in Rise of Skywalker, they try to like, what if we had 800 Star Destroyers? It's like, what if you had one cool one? So,
if you had one highly detailed one, showed its its capacity, which would be very frightening.
Yeah. Let me cut to Orson speaks with a CG Grand Moff Tarkin, which people made fun of this at the time, and I guess you still can. It's fine for what it is. Like, what do you expect? So.
Yeah, I didn't take me out of it. I wasn't expecting. It's like I knew it was going to be a trip to the uncanny valley. It's like, okay, yeah, it's not there yet.
I don't know. I can't. When did The Curious Case of Benjamin Button come out? Because there they pretty much did it right.
That would have been
2008.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, there was ways to do this. Well, I guess the thing with that is that, well, the problem with this one is that they were like reusing scans of the actor from the original Star Wars movie. So they didn't just have like a bunch of stuff laying around that they could gather information on. They had a limited amount of sources they could use, and they just recreated it using that. And so, it can only do it so much. It's just like he looks like he has his own lighting, which looks like he's taken out of the scene. That seems to me what the problem is, but no. You can watch. I'm sure the Corridor Crew guys did a takedown of that stuff where it's like, where they could do it better.
Yeah, they could explain like, why does this happen? And
yeah, why don't you just cast a different guy? Or do you think the Grand Moff Tarkin need to be included, or you just think that was just no? Do you think some producers like, we need some fan service here?
I'm not sure. I think it was probably. Well, no, he needed to be included because he was the guy running the ultimate development of the Death Star.
Yeah.
So it made sense that he was in this.
Or does it make Orson more interesting that like he also has a foe and it's also Grand Moff Tarkin?
Oh yeah. Because both him and Darth Vader work for this guy.
Yeah.
He outranks both of them.
We get word is going around about the cargo pilot defecting. Orson is being sent to Jeddah to blow up something, blow it up or something. We get a flashback of Jen's childhood, and then we just cut to her just waking up. Which I actually think this flashback is her. She's waiting in the hole again, but this time she's like a teenager, and like we don't know what that means yet, but we will like pretty soon. Jin wakes up as they orbit Jeddah. They land. Here we see an in-atmosphere Star Destroyer above a kyber crystal mine that powers the Death Star. So they're just they're just stealing all these kyber crystals. Which here there's weird, like, I guess this used to be a Jedi temple or something, because like again, kyber crystals used for lightsabers. There's also like weird statues that are either built to be laying down or have fallen down. I don't know, but there's just rock structures in the sand that have faces on them. So I'm not sure if that was standing or they just carved it out like that. So I think it's just supposed to be some Jedi stuff. So
Yeah, well, it just like looked cool.
yeah. K2 wants to infiltrate the city, but I think they tell him to hold back because they think he's a liability, even though he's the only one with like an Imperial uniform because he's a robot with the Empire insignia on it. And this is also where I was like trying to spell like Empire with an E, and then I would get to spell Imperial. I'm like, wait, Imperial starts with an I, and then that made no sense to me whatsoever. Does that ever confuse you, Nathan? This is the first time I ever thought about it.
No, it's just like it's kind of one of those weird like English things where it's like, yeah, it's plural if it's this or yeah.
Okay.
So no, that never really threw me.
Well, I just
now you've got me thinking about
it. Yeah, Empire's an E and Imperial's an I. So.
Why is that? Because E and I make the same sound. Why is one plural and one singular?
Yeah. But we cut to Bodhi is brought before some creature to make sure he's telling the truth, which this is up to you what this is. I have no idea.
It's the squid of truth.
Yeah, it's their version of the little black ball robot with the syringe on it. So.
Yeah.
Inside the city of Jeddah, we see like we see the bar guys from Star Wars. The guy who's like, my friend doesn't like you. I don't like you either. Just again, some fan service nonsense here.
I remember those guys. Yep.
Which, presumably like, oh, hey, they escaped that city in the meantime. Maybe they have people that die there. Maybe that's why they're so grumpy. So.
Yeah, maybe they were happy.
Yeah, it's a crowded bazaar, and there's Imperials are of a heavy present. We see a blind guy, Imwe, who's played by what's this guy's name? I don't know. I immediately forgot it. Oh man. There's that. He's a famous like action Donnie Yen.
Okay.
Which I think he's done a lot of stuff. I think like the Iron Monkey franchise is an early one of his, but I think he's most known for the Ip Man franchise, which I hear good things about, but I've never seen. He also played a blind guy in the recent John Wick movie.
Okay, interesting.
Which like got me questioning for a moment. It's like, he's not actually blind, right? No, he's not, but I guess he just plays an extreme blind guy, so. He also has a gun in that movie.
It's a good idea.
Without the Force. Yeah, so he's talking about being like one with the Force, and the Force is with him. He's like he's basically doing like telling people's future for money here. Like there is some talk about like, because what do they call them, like the Wills or something like that, and they're like the last protectors of like this Jedi temple that's like being raided by the Empire, and so they're kind of disgruntled. Then Saul's rebels come out and they attack an Imperial tank. Is this like a tank, but it's also like carrying the Kyber crystals, so I'm not sure if it's both or what's going on here. But
yeah, it seems like a troop transport / truck, I guess.
But also like it holds the Kyber crystals on the outside and it's like screwed in, so I'm like, is there something special that needs to be that way? But it's fine. It looks neat. So they attack the tank. They take out the Kyber crystals, and then an AT-ST comes in and starts blowing them to bits. Jin and Andor run off, and they come across another Imperial squad, which here Jin just beats up an entire squad with a nightstick, which never appears in the movie ever again. But
yeah, looks like you see more of that.
But. Then she shoots a K2 droid that's not K2, and then K2 shows up and is like, hey, did you know that wasn't me? She's like, yeah.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I like that too.
And then also, then he just grabs a grenade out of the air and then throws at an Imperial squad without even looking at him, just tosses it behind him and kills him. So, and they leave. They end up in front of another squad, and they're going to be taken away. And then this is when M-Wave shows up and fights off the squad. And then Baze shows up, this is the guy who's basically got like a like basically like a chain laser gun or
Yeah.
whatever on his back. It's pretty cool, but I don't know if he like. Do you know if he has a history? This seemed like a weapon that like a Mandalorian would have, but I don't know if that's like anything.
Yeah,
That's
I never really I looked it up and it said like what it was, but it didn't really say why it was.
oh okay.
So it's kind of like, yeah, it's just something cool. It's just bulky and awkward. It's very encumbering
Yeah.
because it's a backpack driven weapon. So
But then when you need it to, it can fire really fast and kill lots of people. So
yeah, it's just it's like yeah, because I know in the Mandalorian they talk about the E-web, like the evil guy from Breaking Bad is like,
okay.
you're familiar with this weapon, and it's because it's like a crew served, just blaster, it's like a heavy machine gun, but it shoots lasers.
Yeah.
It's kind of a similar thing.
It's probably built out of an MG50 or was it MG? What is that? MG50, MG55, whatever that German machine. No, that's an MG34, isn't it?
I think so.
The
Yeah.
German one that like almost every other like belt-fed weapon is based on.
Yeah, the one that like in World War II, it sounds like ripping paper when you fire it.
I mean, that's what Star Wars was mostly like. Let's take this World War II weapon, kind of put an extra bit on it, and we're done.
Yeah.
Of course, the Stormtrooper blaster that thing does look cool like as is.
Yeah, what was that, like a Sterling?
Yeah, it was a Sterling submachine gun. Yeah. Yeah, they look really cool. They have that folding. Yeah, it's like the little bit it adds to is just them not having the stock out because it's an underfolder or whatever, and so it just kind of adds a little bulk to it, and make it look like it's adding energy to it or whatever. As a what's here? Yeah, Baze shows up and shoots a bunch more people, but then Saul's rebels shows up and grabs them all. And as they take him away, the Star Destroyer leaves with the Kyber crystals. Cut to Jin and Andor are in Saw's prison now. Jin gets taken away to talk to Saw. Andor gets some lockpicks out, so he's going to pick the door. And then we have Imwe and Baze are just kind of being like, Imwe's just like, yeah, everything will be worked out, and Baze is just mad in a corner somewhere. So that's like their thing. Jin speaks with Saw. She's mad at him for abandoning her he basically abandoned her out of the rebellion, out of his rebellion and just the rebels in general. So that's that flashback of her waiting in the hole was when she was a teenager when Saul left her there because he didn't want her like trying to fight anymore because he's like, well, you're just gonna get killed for no reason. So I don't know, does like Saw really owe anything to Jin or their family? Like, what's the connection there, you think?
I don't know. It seems to be like it's like a way to further his just insane commitment to this one man war he wants to fight against the Empire.
Yeah.
And it's like, this guy can help me do it. And he also kind of remembers like, oh, there was a time when this was pure before I just lost my mind. I'm willing to kill everyone to achieve a goal. So yeah, that's what I always got the vibe of it was.
Okay. Saul thinks he's caught in a trap, like between either like the Imperials trying to assassinate him or the rebels trying to assassinate him. And he's both wrong. And he'll die anyways.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about Rogue One. They're both wrong and you're gonna die anyways. The Death Star, we see the Death Star hovers over Jeddah. They prepare to test the laser and fire on Jeddah City, which here they say, they use some phrase like use one portion or something like that. So it's like they're not using the full power of the Death Star here. But
yeah.
It's still just completely. I mean, do you think there's a planet left with this like low yield firing, or do you think it just rips itself apart eventually?
No, I think it just detonates like a part of the planet.
Okay.
Like but not destroying the atmosphere or anything. It's just a massive amount of energy released into this really small space.
Okay.
That creates this like rolling wave of energy fed destruction. But no, it's not like the full blast.
So I was getting the impression it felt like the planet was just going to rip itself apart eventually, but it won't be blown into stardust like it is oh, what's the planet in
Oh,
that gets blasted in the first one.
yeah, the peaceful planet. Yeah, Bail
What,
Organa's planet.
what planet is Leia from?
Yeah, because it's
Alderaan.
Alderaan. Yeah.
Um, then we cut to Imwe notices the cargo pilot, which he's all freaked out because he had a squid that was going to kill him if he lied. Andor talks with him. Yeah, he's shaken up. We cut to Saul plays the message from Galen, which Jin watches the message and has a bunch of emotions because it's like, well, it's my dad, and also it's like, oh, we need to fight the Empire. And this is where we learn that Galen built the Death Star with an intentional flaw. Then we see the laser is like fired in silence, which is another great like. It seems like a great choice by Gareth Edwards, and then a confusing choice for a standard audience movie. It's like what, did the sound go out? Like no, it's great. It makes you focus more. It's like, or that might be the only cool thing from the second uh, um, prequel movie where you have like the weird like black hole grenades that like detonate in space, and like for a moment they make no sound, but then they have like a backward sounds that reverberates after.
Depth charge or like
Yeah.
throws stuff everywhere. Yeah.
But at first it makes no sound. It just, you see the explosion and it's like, wait, what happened? And then it makes a weird ass sound. um yeah, so Saul watches the city explode, and it just kind of like, you just see like whole chunks of the planet getting lifted up, but like slowly. It's like very odd.
Yeah.
It's like, is this an explosion? Is this anti-gravity? What's going on here?
It seems like whatever amount of energy the Death Star is outputting, even at low yield, it's like what you call a generative explosive, energy effect, where like the energy revealed is just blowing things apart, and it continues to build strength
Yeah.
as it goes. It's like a tsunami of energy that's just pushing everything out of the way.
Yeah, so like the shockwaves coming Saw's way. We cut to like, we see like the planet's crust is like flying into the atmosphere, which this is really cool looking. Yeah, it just seems like watching this movie just seems like there's so much missed opportunity in the entire Star Wars universe for just like scale and depth of scenes like these. Let me cut to Andor comes to get Jin. Saw isn't going to run, so he's just going to wait to die. Jin, Andor, Bodhi, Imwe, and Baze hop on the shuttle that K2 flew to them. We see they fly away. Saw awaits his death and gets killed by the blast. The shuttle, like as it's almost getting enveloped by the blast, do they go to light speed, or they go to some near light speed?
I think they just go to light speed.
That's what. Yeah, it seems because it's like, I'm calculation. He's like, no, screw that. We got to get out of here now, and hits a button and they go off. So, but almost every time in Star Wars when you go to light speed, you get like the inside shuttle thing where you see like the star fields turn into lines, but we don't get that here. So I wasn't necessarily sure if it went to light speed or just went to some sub light speed or something, but something just as dangerous, where you're not like in subspace, you're like, if you went to a sublight speed but you weren't in subspace, you're subject to anything you hit at that speed will destroy your vessel. So.
Yeah, so that's the thing with like Star Wars. It's like they're entering subspace, so the only thing they have to watch out to is that, like, I guess there's mass shadows from the real space, so you don't want to fly too close to suns and planets that are huge.
Yeah,
because it can like distort your journey. It'll like throw you off course gravitationally. But yeah, they always, because they're going from one universe to like a kind of a branch universe. that where you can, the ship goes faster than light for some reason. It's vague, but it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's the time tunnel.
I mean,
Right.
there's subspace in Star Trek as well, but
Yeah.
that's to account for the theory of relativity and why you can just go somewhere real fast and it's not 1,000 years later where you're going. So
Yeah. Yeah. Star Wars has a lot, or Star Trek has a lot more like specific, like, oh, it's just inertial displacement. Or in Star Wars, it's like they just jump in and out of hyperspace. It's why a ship's like suddenly appears.
yeah.
It's really cool because it just like pops out of like another dimension essentially.
um. Oh yeah. This is. Oh no, wait. This is where we see the blast going into the atmosphere, but that's the last we see of that planet. So it's basically decimated, or at least the city was completely destroyed. So I don't know if anybody lives anywhere else on that planet. So then we get Grand Moff Tarkin takes over the Death Star to the anger of Orson, where he wants accolades and he wants to be he wants like, look at this weapon I made, like I should be applauded for this. But then he's also related to like weird failings going around the program, so now he has to account for those. We cut to the rebels get word that Jeddah was destroyed. Then we cut to Andor gets word to go to Edu to find and kill Galen. Jin relays Galen's message, and Andor's mad that like Jin didn't grab the hologram as evidence. It's like, yeah, nobody's just gonna believe you because you remember that. So, which he's right, but also whatever. The planet was blowing up, Then there was mention of going to Scarif to grab Death Star plans to pinpoint the weakness. We cut to Edu Imperial Kyber Processing Factory. The Rogue One crew, which they're not called Rogue One yet, crashes their shuttle on Edu amongst the stormy and weather and mountains. And then one of the kind of like more contentious rebel guys sends a squadron their way just to like try to kill like Galen with like a bomb, which they succeed. So it's like, which I forget that's like it's actually the rebels that kill Galen. So,
Yeah. I kind of forgot that till I watched this too. Kill that guy.
Andor goes out with a sniper blaster and Bodhi. Imwe hints that Andor's gonna go kill Galen. So Jin goes to go find her father. Everybody heads out, but K2 stays with the shuttle. Andor sets up a sniper position. Jin goes for the base to find her dad. Baze and Imwe just kind of wait on the mountainside because Imwe just has this thing. It's like, yeah, we'll just wait here and then everything will come our way. So I don't know anything. The Imwe character is like fun. Like he's not a Jedi, but he kind of is in tune with the Force in weird ways.
He's like a spiritual like samurai guy.
Yeah,
but it's like a guy who's like, he doesn't use the Force, but he has all the trappings and kind of the philosophy of someone who would.
Yeah.
And he uses that to kind of move through the world as I don't know if he's like not necessarily like obviously not a moral figure because he's some kind of mercenary, but he's not like a terrible person either. No. He's weirdly optimistic and definitely ready to die. It's like, well, that's my destiny. He's very zinny that way.
Yeah, I mean, he can. Yeah, he seemingly can see the future. It's just like it's never definitive. It's not like he's like warning 3 steps ahead. He's just like, this feels like a moment. I'm gonna let you know.
It's not like Yoda, who actually is very powerful with the Force. And
yeah, because this guy can't move anything with his mind. He just kind of can. He just kind of gets it.
Well, he's blind, so he's learned to interpret the world differently.
Yeah.
And it's not like Yoda. It's like they had the best synopsis of that. It's like a talking frog talks a man into killing his father. Like, huh? What are you talking about? And then it shows a picture of like Luke when Yoda's on his back in Empire. It's like, oh, okay. What kind of story is that? It's like a grim fairy tale.
Orson shows up and gathers the scientists to root out the traitor. which Galen turns himself in, and then Orson just kills all the scientists anyway and leaves Galen alive. So,
again, product focused. You're going to carry this out for me, right? I know you've got this.
Nathan, well, I guess, well, no, I guess it's the. I was gonna ask you, do you think this doomed the second Death Star, but that was already open, so there was flaws all around it. I was gonna say, like, being that they didn't have a scientist team to rebuild it, that they just used the plans from the first one. It was gonna have the same exact flaws.
I don't know, because the trick with the second Death Star was it was only partially completed yet fully operational. So I don't know if they made like changes to it.
Well, also, like, the big thing there was that the shield that it was being surrounded by from the base.
Yeah, from Endor, so you could have the dual battle.
Yeah.
But it also like got around of like, how are we going to destroy the Death Star the second time? We can't use the old, exhaust port scam again. It's like, well, no, it's just its insides are open to space. You just fly into it, at several times the speed of sound, because who's not that crazy? Yeah, that's how you destroy it this time.
But Andor also, like, yeah, so Orson doesn't kill Galen, and Andor decides he can't shoot Galen, which is funny, because we see him in the the very first scene. He kills somebody that is an ally because they might talk or be flaky, and here he's like, I'm directly ordered to kill this man and I can't. Which I don't know if this is like supposed to be that he has feelings for Jin or what's going on here, or he's finally conflicted about something. But I don't know.
It's hard with Andor, because you don't. That's why the TV series is so cool, because it establishes like he is a ruthless guy with feelings.
Yeah.
But those are hard won. And yeah, I think because he does have feelings for her, not maybe like that, but just as like another human being who now he's fought with and suffered with. It's like, I can't just shoot her father in the face. It's a little hard. There is limits. But yeah, that all does seem, it's like I would take that shot. It's like, this solves everything. It's like, this shot has to be made. It's not, you can hate me later, you can shoot at me, but I got to take this shot. So, but it makes the story move along. So
we get X-wing fighters come up and assault the base. Here's where Jin gets up and yells for her father, and then that's the moment where an X-wing drops a bomb on the landing platform and basically kills everybody. Imwe shoots down a TIE fighter that crashes into the base, so that helps with that. A big thing in this movie, and that little bit, one guy who just unintentionally kamikazes, was it the Super Star Destroyer or was it just a Star Destroyer, where he takes out the con tower because he's getting shot and just flies in the con tower.
Oh, the guy who flies the A-wing into the what's that called? The Executor. Yeah, and it crashes into the Death Star. Yeah. That's kamikaze tactics.
Well, unintentionally, he was being shot down.
It's like, you're going to die anyway. You might as well take as many to hell with you before you go. That's a warrior code.
But here it's used it's used often in this movie. We'll see it again in the even grander fashion.
Because this is kind of a retelling of World War II. Because remember, in World War II, the Japanese kamikaze planes into our stuff. We're the only Navy where a captain told the men, get off the ship, and he kamikazed a ship into another Japanese. The Japanese were like, holy crap. He's the guy steering. It's a very famous story. It's like, we're the only Navy that we know of in World War II where it's like, get off the boat, boys. We're going and taking him to hell. And he did it. He sunk that other ship. But the thing was, if they tried to turn around or something, they were so badly damaged, the Japanese were just going to pick them apart with their cannons. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, get off. We're just going in. We're just but he went down with the ship, because that was he could have jumped off too, but he wanted to get it done. I'll have to look that one up. But that was always like the craziest kamikaze of the Second World War was not a pilot. It was a captain of an American destroyer. Even the Japanese did a ceremony after that battle. We respect this guy. This was really nuts. Not every day you see a boat turned into a torpedo.
Orson's like slightly injured. He leaves. Jen calls her dad as he's dying. He says some stuff and then dies. It's supposed to be thoughtful stuff, but it's just kind of like standard, like, "Oh, my stardust," which that's the key phrase here that will come up later on. That's basically the only reason for the scene is for him to say stardust. I mean, he does say it in the beginning of the movie, but this is just an extra reminder, a gentle reminder for a later scene. Andor shows up to grab Jin and leave, which she's like, "No, take my dad's body." It's like, "Nah, I'm not extending my, I'm not extending my."
Look, I didn't shoot him in the head in front of you, and that like a pilot. So we gotta go.
We're not compromising our situation for your dead dad's body.
Yeah, we're not carrying a corpse with it. We're about to be overrun by the Imperial Navy. Sorry.
Bodhi and K2 stole an Imperial shuttle and they get out of there. They take off. Jin accuses Andor of going to kill her father, which here Andor's like, "I didn't shoot him, right?" It's like, what are you talking about? But here then she's like, "You're not the only one who lost everything," which is like, that's a important characteristic of the untold parts of the rebellion. So, well, actually, lots of people lost everything, but we don't get into like the pain of what that brings. So.
Yeah, it's the kind of the part of Star Wars. It's interesting considering the scale of destruction that's capable in the Star Wars universe. Of like, you think there'd be a lot of like wounded souls because they're blowing up planets at some point.
Yeah.
But now it's explored here. That's what makes this movie cool.
But yeah, I mean, that's the moments that kind of. I mean, you don't need to do it constantly. You can have fun Star Wars, but like, there's that great scene in, I think it's like the second season or third season of Mandalorian with Bill Burr. It's like something Maze, I think his character's name is, and they're impersonating Imperials, and he's talking to the guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I was on this planet. Like a lot of good people died there." And he's like, "For the Empire." It's like, "Yeah, there was no reason we needed to be there." And then he shoots the guy. Because he realizes this guy's insane. He doesn't realize he did a bad thing. People died, but he still sees it as like a political win. It's like, no, those were people. Like, I don't care what side they're on. They died for no reason.
It was almost a play on that meme where they have the stormtrooper. He's got his hand like held up to his mask, and he's like, "I had friends on that Death Star." It's like, yeah, there's like 250,000 people. But they also destroyed a planet, which like
could have billion people,
billions of people on it. It's anything like Earth. It's a lot of people on it. And it was a hopeful planet where no one had weapons, which, like, well, let's see where that gets you.
Space, Switzerland got destroyed.
Yeah.
Then we cut to a lava planet. I think I either missed the name or you're supposed to know it was like Mustafar or something. I can't remember.
I think it was, yeah, because it was from the last of the
Revenge of the Jedi. Like that's the planet where he gets like all mangled up and stuff like that. So yeah, we get Darth Vader is informed Orson is here to see him, which he's let out of his Bacta tank. Then we cut to him like he's in, full get up, and Vader talks and intimidates Orson, and then Vader just chokes him a bit, just to give him a little erection. That's
yeah, just a little squeeze.
There's more of that to come, and Orson's like, "Great." No, that's not what happens. I don't know. Just like how often does Vader threaten strangling versus just strangles people to death?
I think Orson was the second person I've seen him not strangle them to death.
Okay,
because he didn't do it with the one guy on the original Star Wars, because the guy was talking, remember, it's like your sad devotion to that ancient religion hasn't brought in the plans back or whatever.
Okay.
And he chokes him, and then Tarkin watches for a little while, kind of bemused, and he's like, "Enough, release him." So just establishing the power relationship there. And then Krennic was the other guy who's like, yeah, we both serve Tarkin, but only one of us is going to live, because that's like Vader's like plan to always. Vader's like an executive on the move. He's always looking to go up.
Then we cut to a meeting of the rebels. They debate whether Jin is saying what Jin is saying is true, or if they need to react to this, or if this is just like a plan by the Empire to lure them out to a final battle. And so Mon Mothma says they can't assault Scarif without the full support of the Council. So then, everyone's angry about that. And we cut to like, I think it's Bodhi, and it's Bodhi, Baze, and Imwe are like trying to figure out what they're gonna do, and then Andor shows up and he's gathered a group of volunteers to go on a suicide mission, which these are all guys like, this is where he talks about like, yeah, they're all like assassins and murderers and traitors. It's like, this is what the rebels are made of, because that's how you fight an empire. So, I've always wondered, is there so like the who are the fish people in Star Wars?
The Mon Calamari.
So yeah, they build the rebel ships. So why doesn't the Empire just go there and blow up their shipping yards? Is there a reason for that? Or are these ships already built and they're not building new ones?
I think there's certain regions of space like the Empire can't control.
Okay.
I think there's reasons why.
Okay.
Because the Mon Calamari make the big like their
capital ships,
battle cruisers, but like the X-Wings are made by a company called Incom, which was formed by a bunch of people who worked on the TIE fighters, but then like didn't want to be a part of it. So that's like they made like the X-Wing and the TIE fighter kind of share some similar DNA, where they have that weird like vectored wing attack, but X-Wings have shields and hyperdrives, and TIE fighters are just tied to the whatever ship supports them.
Yeah.
Because the rebellion can't have like support carriers and stuff. They just don't have that kind of manpower. But yeah, that's I believe there's just certain places like it would be very costly for the Empire to go into. That's why they're building the Death Star. It's like warp, because it's never seen, but that Death Star has like a hyperdrive in it. Like it could just go space like that. It's like, wow.
Have we ever seen it move in hyperspace?
I don't think so, but we should.
Okay. So that would be in the Act 2, which is kind of hard to parse out the acts in this movie, because there's usually Act 2 is like when they're at their lowest, but there's so many lows in this movie. It's like, I can't pick one. So.
This is the next phase of sadness. Is about
Act 3, we have the crew gather on the Imperial shuttle. Bodhi gives the call sign Rogue One, and they take off. We get Rogue One approaches Scarif at the planet. It has a shield gate, so the entire planet is encased in shield. There's just this little space station there that holds it open, which just seemed... I think the first time I saw this was hugely comical to me, because I just thought of Spaceballs immediately. It's just like we're reverse engineering Spaceballs.
What's the code? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's like, that's what a moron has on their luggage. Right?
That's the same code as my luggage.
Yeah.
Yes, President Screw. There's a tower there on the planet. There's a tower. I think they call it the Citadel, that holds all the blueprints for all the Imperial stuff. So they need to get in there and get the Death Star plans out. Jin gives a speech to the troops where she's kind of like, we just take it one step at a time. We make one impossible journey, and then we go to the next impossible journey. But then she's also like, and then we do that till we can't. So she's like, well, we're all gonna die, but we gotta try. So.
And this can't do it anymore thing's gonna be coming up pretty quick, guys. So everyone brace for impact.
The shuttle lands on a beach landing pad. So this is a new biome for Star Wars. I don't think they've ever done beach anything.
Tropical biome, yeah.
This looks really fucking cool, and they never went back to it.
No. We're fighting someplace nice. Fighting in Tahiti.
An inspection team comes on board, and then we cut to Orson has made his way to Scarif. We cut back to Rogue One took out the inspection team. Now they took their uniforms. The rebels sneak off the ship and take positions. We get Andor, K2, and Jin get on a transport and are going to the Citadel. We cut to K2 spikes another Imperial droid and gets a map of the Citadel. Or here it makes it seem like that took a lot out of him to do that, but I'm not sure. He seemed to be kind of wavy after doing that, but then Andor gives the order to attack, and so they set off a bunch of explosives. Which here it's like an interesting scene because it's like they're in the Citadel and they just watch these explosives because they timed it in a sequence, and they just start like exploding all over the place and like keep doing it, and then like everyone's like taking a pause. It's like, well, who would be dumb enough to attack this place? And then Orson's like, release the garrison, you idiots. So they release the garrison. And then the troopers just run immediately into an ambush. Also like I think the last little bit, like Andor says to everybody after Jin's like, yeah, we're all gonna die. Is like, make 10 seem like 100, and they're like, yeah. Then we cut to Tarkin's told of the attack, and he wants to jump to Scarif with the Death Star. We cut to the rebels get word that there's an attack on Scarif, and so some of the rebels are headed to Scarif to join the fight. Which here, like, Mon Mothma's like kind of like, well, we didn't agree on this, but then she has like a wry smile, like, thankfully somebody did something. And then we get an obligatory C-3PO and R2-D2 cameo. So,
the next scene, the Battle of Scarif, is when we really show like this movie grasps the scale of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because it's like this ridiculous battle in space, just wildly destructive.
Well, even the ground battle as like just keeps growing and growing. Because we get AT-ATs. Do you call them AT-ATs or AT-ATs? I've heard contention between them.
AT-ATs.
Okay, I always
like that. AT-ST is the short one.
Yeah, that's why I always called the tall ones AT-AT, because I called the short ones AT-ST. So
yeah. But AT-AT just sounds cooler to say.
I can't even remember, like, did they ever actually say these names out loud, or we just know them from weird technical manuals we've read on Star Wars?
I think no, they call them Imperial Walkers in Empire. I don't know. Maybe they don't.
Because, like, somehow that's in my knowledge somewhere. So I don't know why. And everybody else seems to know too, so...
Well, it's like a lot of like Star Wars Battlefront. You hear that all the time. It's like, attack the AT-AT. It's like, okay.
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, the AT-ATs are coming for the rebels on the ground, which so they pin them down. I think it's Admiral Raddus, rebel fleet arrives. So he's a Mon Calamari guy. Where he's got a ship, and a squad of TIE fighters, not TIE fighters, squad of X-wings make it through the gate before it gets closed, and then like 3 other X-wings like crash against it, which is kind of weird because they don't just like vaporize into nothing. It's like a solid thing that it crashes against and keeps crashing. So
yeah, it's like the car hit a wall at 100 miles an
hour. So yeah, now they're like, so now the thing's closed. So now the new plan is to transmit the Death Star plans, and like there's not really any hope for them to get out of there. But the ground rebels are pinned down, and the X-wings come in and take out the AT-ATs. Which here it seems like, man, were those the snow speeders? Did they just suck? Because these X-wings take these things up rather quickly. Just a side glance.
Snow speeders didn't have proton torpedoes.
Oh, okay.
Because they were too small.
Okay.
They didn't have the launchers, and I don't think X-wings would operate very well in the atmosphere on Hoth.
Okay.
Snow speeders were made specific. I know the X-wings could get in and out of the planet, but I don't know if they could fight on it. I think the snow speeders were custom built to fight in that cold environment. Well, I could be totally making that up too. I don't know.
I mean, it's a fiction. You can be whatever you want it to be. So. Just a nerd fight. It's like, no. Well, it's just like, you just remember like how hard they were to take down in Empire, and then here it seems like a kind of an effortless like takedown of all these things.
One of the best reveals in a sci-fi movie, though.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like you hear the sound. It's like, what could they be attacking them with? And it's like, oh, giant walking machine.
You saw Empire in theaters, right?
Yeah, I was a little kid, but
Okay.
yeah. No, it was nuts. It was like, oh, we're gonna have these things for real in like 5 years. There's image to this, and it's like, well, they're using energy weapons. We still use kinetic weapons. It's like we could make walking tanks, but then artillery is a real thing, and it would just knock it down with just massive artillery strikes. They never used artillery very effectively in the Star Wars universe. They always,
it's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite models, though.
yeah. Oh, they're cool.
I don't know if I have it here. Probably not. No.
They're around.
I got one. It's somewhere. It's a really cool figure. I think it's actually from this movie because it exists in some movie because they made an action figure of it. There's a lot of one-offs from this movie because they have like I think they call them sand trooper. No, not sand troopers. Like, what is it? But they're in this movie. They kind of have like the weird flat kind of duckbill kind of mask, and they're like in kind of like brown uniforms.
Oh, they're like the Jungle Troopers?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's exclusive to this movie. I don't think they ever brought them out anywhere else.
Yeah, there was like a rebel attack thing too, or it was called a V-Wing or something. I think that was only in this movie.
Well, and there's also the was it the U-Wing? That's like their
Maybe that was U-Wing.
There's the transport troop that they're like kind of doing like Vietnam side gunning out of it, and then it has like the big like switchblade thing when it lands. So, let's see. Bodhi's trying to set up cons to get a transmission out. The X-Wing squad takes out all the other AT-ATs or AT-ATs. I don't think we see them again. K2 fights some stormtroopers and he gets shot in the back. We cut to Radiss's fleet is trying to shoot up the shield station, but it's not budging. Cut back to Bodhi, goes out to set up the comms because he's got to get to this, like, plug into this one thing. There's not enough line. And he starts taking fire eventually. Andor and Jen find the Stardust file, so that's why it's important because they're looking through all those files. I think there's even like Darksaber's one of them. I think there's probably a bunch of like Easter eggs in all the things they're mentioning here, but the Darksaber caught my mind. But she finds the file Stardust, and that's when she knows it's Death Star, and she's like, "It's me," which I don't. It was like I don't know if that has any deeper meaning or anything like that. So.
My father named me after death.
Then K2 is finally killed while holding off the stormtroopers, and he locks the door, which it seems like him busting the console and it blowing up is what actually kills him. So, or if he just succumbs to the blaster fire.
Yeah, that was probably like the last thing he could do before he just
Because it seemed like the blaster fire was like melting him, which it was interesting. So, but yeah, it's a big mechanical archive. So like pulls, it's like a big thing that shoots up, and like I don't know, you ever seen those like things that like it's like a vending machine, but you ever seen those like carport vending machine things where it like hoists up a car and parks it? And stuff like that? Which I guess they have one of those underneath the what's the Sydney, Australia like opera house or whatever?
Sydney Opera House, I thought.
Okay, that's what it is. Yeah, they have like one of those. Like that's how you. There's like 8 floors of parking underneath that thing.
Huh. That doesn't surprise me.
Because the only other time I've seen that was like in one of the Mission Impossible movies, and I'm like, this isn't a real thing, is it? And I don't know, they have stuff like that in Japan too. So
I have stuff like that here.
Yeah, I just haven't seen it. Yeah.
They have the what was the? I mean, I think they've since gone out of business, but it was one of the car like companies like
Carvana or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. They had something that looked like a giant vending machine, and when you bought your car, you'd go to the place, and the big robot would go up and pick up, bring your car out, and set it on the ground. It was outside of Detroit once. I saw it, the freeway.
I know they have that like at Volkswagen's headquarters.
Yeah.
Because there's something I can't remember. There's something weird with buying Volkswagens in Germany where you have to like pick it up at their headquarters or something like that.
Sounds like something they do.
And then like it gets vended out of this giant, circular tower, and then like, here's your Volkswagen. It's like, thank you, sir.
They have a pretty impressive factory there.
Yeah.
I think it's Wolfsburg or something.
Yeah. Well, it's like Volkswagens are so cheap, and it's like, well, Germans don't make cheap stuff, and it's like, well, yeah, this thing will work great until it breaks, and then everything will break on it, and it'll cost 3 times the cost of the car. It's like, wow, that's amazing.
I've always respected the Volkswagens, but I've sat through a few Volkswagen repairs, and I'm like, nope. A car that will literally die at the same mileage of the Focus I was driving, which cost half as much to begin with. It's like, oh, it literally will last the same amount of time, but it's half as expensive to fix. It's like, yeah, the body rusted out at the same time. Everything, it all happened at the same time. It's like, yeah, these Volkswagens are cool, and they're definitely road quieter and smoother than my Focus, but it costs twice as much. And it wasn't any faster either. That's the thing. It's like, yeah, the car was the same speed.
Well, I just remember there was like a Car Talk episode I listened to, and they were talking about, I don't know if it's like some kind of wheel thing, or there's like, every car has like 6 of this thing that attaches to something. And in every other American vehicle, if one of them breaks, you just replace it. But for the Volkswagen, all 6 need to be replaced. And it's like, that's fucking weird.
That sounds like some kind of suspension assembly link the Germans would come up with. Where the whole thing moves like scissors. And it's like, this is a really smooth ride, but there's no like, oh, one of your joints went out or something. It's like, nope, $1,500. Okay.
So yeah, they need to climb this. So yeah, the disc doesn't come out because it gets all shut down. So now they need to like go onto this archive tunnel or tower and climb up it. Which, like, they're climbing on, like, the little holds on these hard drives is what they're climbing up on. It's like, this is very precarious. So yeah, they got to, and then we cut to the ground fighting continues as the rebels start taking heavy losses, and the Empire gets reinforcements. We hear like because also Orson shows up, and so the Death Troopers are out there taking out everybody. Bodhi needs a switch to be pushed, like somewhere else, so he's talking to him, but like it's out in the open. One guy's like, "I'll get it," and they just immediately die. We cut to Jin gets the disc, but then Orson shows up inside of the Citadel with troopers, and they start taking fire while like climbing on this tower on the inside. We cut back. Imwe walks out in the fire to pull the switch. Where here's like, "I'm one the Force, and the Force is with me." So he's kind of saying his little chant here. And so yeah, he gets to it. He accomplishes the goal, and then he gets hit with an explosion. Baze comes over and holds him till he dies, and he's like, "It's okay, I'll see you again." So, which they won't, but Force stuff, we cut to in space. Some Y-wings disable a Star Destroyer because 2 Star Destroyers up here. We cut back to
a lot of fan service in there though, because it's all the people that attack the Death Star.
Oh, okay.
Because the guys piloting the Y-wing, it's a recreation of that actor from the Death Star.
Okay.
The commander of Red Squadron.
Okay.
Those are all the people from the original movie.
Okay. They just get a different actor, or they did one of the CGI things?
Because they did the CGI thing, but it was in a ship, and it was fast, and it was on a black background of space.
Okay.
So you didn't notice it. It's like, oh, that's the guy. I remember that's the...
Yeah, there's one guy that looks and sounds exactly like some guy from Star Wars, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, both those guys, the leader of Red Squadron and the leader of the Y-Wings Gold Squadron, it's this... They just... I don't know if the actors were maybe still alive. But yeah, they nailed it pretty good.
Oh yeah, it's a pretty quick scene. So
yeah, yeah, it's not like Tarkin where he was delivering like a 60
paragraphs.
Second.
Yeah,
yeah, it's
or like what Leia gets one word and it looks bad.
That's because of the white 70s garb she was wearing in the background of because immediately the transport they run away on where Leia's in. It's like, we're back in the 70s, baby. They had to do it though, because that's what it looked like in the movie.
Well, when you see the background, where you see the like behind the scenes on how they made that, it's like, oh wow, they got a real actor that basically had the same exact proportions of Carrie Fisher at that time. And then, like, they track it onto her. It's like, this should be perfect, and it looks like her mouth doesn't match up with the words, and like it's like, what's going on?
Yeah, someone explained there's weird things about the uncanny valley. I don't know if it's just internet BS, but I like that the reason we human beings immediately recognize and don't like the uncanny valley indicates that at some point in our past we had to detect fake humans, which is like, that's weird if that's true. But the other thing is, do you realize how many muscles and nerves are in the human face?
Yeah.
And how complex eye tracking and everything is, and like your forehead does this and your eyebrows do that. You can recreate all that with a computer, but you can't recreate the way Carrie Fisher does it.
Yeah.
She's not consciously aware of it. I'm not. You're not consciously aware of it. But when someone has to exactly copy the way you form language, how your eyes move and everything, it's like, yeah, good luck. It ends up looking like a copy of something.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, I remember like the interesting thing I learned from the Corridor Crew guys is like they're talking about like animation mistakes that people have made before, because like sometimes they over animate the upper lip, but like but like they explain that you don't really have muscles in your upper lip, so you can't do like these weird curl things that like cartoon characters do. So.
Yeah, no. all the, I mean, there are muscles, but they're not big. It's all the ones that go this way. You ever seen a human with their skin off their face? The amount of muscles that, I mean, like not real life, but like pictures on, like anatomical pictures of animations of what that would look like.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's a nightmarishly complex thing,
But yeah, your upper lip doesn't have a lot of muscles in it. You kind of just do this, but you can't wiggle it around or do anything like that. And,
it's pretty static.
That's what. Yeah, that was the Uncanny Valley. I had the idea. I think I've said it before about doing a sequel to The Thing.
Yeah.
And have a complete CGI Kurt Russell, and have the whole thing be like, why is it the Uncanny Valley? It's like, because he's an alien.
Something copying a human.
Yeah.
Born to detect this.
And use your understanding of computer graphics as like an in movie explanation of why they look that way. Let's see here. Why Wings disable the Star Destroyer. Bodhi gets the plan of attack to the rebels, but then he soon just gets blown up. So again, sad. It's a guy defecting from the Empire, or he just had a job and now he's like in an entire big moment, and then just dies from a grenade. Which the way the cargo plane blows up is even cool and different from other like Star Wars explosions, because somehow it stands out in my mind. Like I remember that thing blowing up for some reason. Baze walks out to go on one last killing spree, and then he just dies from like a death trooper he kills, and their grenade just like held in their hand goes off and kills him. In space, we get the introduction, or has this happened before? The Hammerhead Corvette.
Yep.
I don't think we've seen this before.
No, I've never seen this before.
It just crashes into the side of this disabled Star Destroyer and starts pushing it into the other Star Destroyer. This is wild and cool and crazy.
Shows the people inside the Corvette just bracing for impact.
Yeah.
Just bashing into, I mean, it's like billions of tons of metal floating around in space.
Yeah, but it's space, so you don't.
It's just mass. It's not weight. So,
we cut back to Jin puts the plans in the antenna, to transmit, but then she has to like realign the antenna. This is the scene that if you watch the trailer, like a TIE fighter just kind of like pops up floating and like is like behind her, but then of course, so I don't know if they did that for the trailer, if that's a cut scene. I have no idea. Do you have any history behind what's going on there?
No, I don't. I know that like in the production history of this movie, there were some there was like reshoots with the director of photography,
Okay.
and they moved something because they originally wrote a happy ending, and then the people got away because they're like, Disney's never gonna go for this, and then Disney was like, no, do the dark ending. Like,
Okay.
oh, okay. So like that scene was shot like, oh, that's how they get off the planet. They like somehow capture that TIE fighter. That's why it's at like the level of the actress. It's like, oh, she's gonna get in that, or I'm just totally spitballing.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well,
But it's
also, I don't think I've ever seen like a TIE fighter like hover in atmosphere like that. Like they're always
yeah.
moving. So I was like, can they do that? Or
Remember in the Mandalorian, they showed how they land in an atmosphere. It's like, oh, that's how they do that.
oh,
Okay.
okay. I don't remember that. So,
Well, yeah, because it was when the guy from I just call him the bad guy from yeah, when the TIE fighter, because it looked like a regular TIE fighter, it was coming down. It's like, oh, is it going to land on its wings? And then all of a sudden it starts to split like an X, and then it just settles down to the ground and he gets out. Now, some people said, no, those were special TIE fighters only for like the big guys, that they all didn't do that. But when you go into the like history, when you find out like, oh no, the Incom people were like, those are the people that worked for the people that made the TIE fighter originally, and they wanted it to be something else, but the Empire just wanted it to be cheap. So it's like, oh, the X-Wing thing, like they did build that into the TIE fighter. It just became a it was like they just opted out of that except for special ones. Because Vader had a special TIE fighter. So yeah, everyone had a special TIE fighter that was special.
Moff Gideon is the character you're looking for.
Moff Gideon, yes.
Let's see. Then we come back to the Hammerhead crashes the Star Destroyers together, which it basically like it shears off the comm tower of the other one. Just like,
and the guys in the Hammerhead are like, holy shit, we just killed 500,000.
And then they're also crashing them both together into the shield base to try to knock it out.
Yeah.
We cut back to Orson confronts Jin on the tower. Andor comes back and is able to shoot Orson, so he's just kind of laying dead there for a while, but he will come back for a moment. We get the two Star Destroyers crash into the shield station and bring down the whole planet shields. Then Admiral Ratson gets a transmission of the plans, and then we have the Death Stars revealed on the horizon, which it looks really cool because it's kind of like, it's got that haze through the atmosphere and stuff, and it's just like poking out there.
Yeah.
Tarkin targets the base. Jin and Andor take an elevator down. Orson wakes up to see like the Death Star killing him. So, because even like the laser hits like behind the base, but it shears off like the comm tower, which is where he's at. So it's like, oh, he just got vaporized right there. So, let's see. The blast knocks. The blast starts to build up and starts to consume the planet. Radson tries to get out of there, but the Darth Vader's Star Destroyer blocks them and kills a bunch of things. And I think their capital ship is disabled here. Andor and Jin sit on the beach and wait to die from the blast wave. So, that's what happens. So they just get it turns white and then they're dead. So. And then, they kind of hug each other a bit, so that's like the last. But yeah, it's like, oh yeah, now all our main characters are dead. So it's like, wow. We cut back. Then we cut to Ratson's command ship is disabled. They're getting a message out through a blockade runner that they have on board, and it's the blockade runner from the opening of New Hope. And then Darth Vader comes aboard and basically annihilates the rebels, which it seems like people really love this scene from the movie. It seems like people that hate this movie love this scene, and I find that's weird. It's like I don't know why people hate this movie unless they just find it too dark. But
yeah, I've never got the hate for this movie.
Okay.
Considering the other Star Wars movies that are out there.
But there is hate for this movie, right? There's people that just don't like this movie?
Oh no, there is. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think I just heard kind of a general discontent. I don't know if it was ever solidified into no, this is why we hate this movie, or if it's just they weren't entertained by it or something.
Star Wars is very factional fandom.
um. Then we cut to the blockade runner like pulls away from like the berth of the command ship, and then they take off, and then we have a rebel gives the plans to Leia, and then like he hands it. It's like he asks like what is it, and she turns around and goes hope, and then they go to light speed and credits. Which like Star Wars, the original Star Wars wasn't called New Hope to win, right? It was never originally called that, right? It was just Star Wars, and then eventually they rebranded it A New Hope.
I think it was always the first one was always Star Wars, and then the opening crawl was A New Hope.
Okay.
And then it started off like part 4, A New Hope. Like okay.
Yeah, but that part 4 was never there originally, right? They added that later on, right?
No, I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay.
I'm not as in depth. I'm not as buried in the Star Wars lore as I am Star Trek. So, because I consider Star Wars to be like I'm having fun. This is a roller coaster ride. Star Trek, I'm like this requires serious consideration and study, and I don't know why, but it's
yeah. I mean, Star Wars has definitely way more casual fans because they don't have to invest in it quite as much as. So okay, this is the AI overview, so this could be all lies, but I'm going to read it first. The part 4
Robot Lords of Tokyo.
Sorry, it's not Seattle, man.
That's the opening song from a Clutch.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's the 10001 1001. That's the song.
The part 4 designation, specifically episode 4 A New Hope, was added to the Star Wars film during its 1981 re-release.
Oh, so it was, but not like in the 2000s or something.
Yeah.
It's done in the...
Because I only know it as having that part 4 and the New Hope stuff, because I've only seen Star Wars on VHS and on TV before they even rebranded that with the new like special effects stuff, because I don't even think you can get just old Star Wars anymore. It's always that 90s re-release that they did.
Yeah, which I paid to go and see every one of those in the theaters.
I just saw the first one, so
I saw all 3 of them, and I enjoyed it because it was like that was cool and new at the time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they added new scenes, and you get to see the Millennium Falcon like pull off of Tatooine while the stormtroopers are shooting at, which that was actually really cool. Because you started to appreciate as special effects got better. One thing about the Star Wars universe was you got to appreciate that these are just powerful machines. They weren't just like a set that happened to fly through space. They became like, yeah, these are real machines. That J.J. Abrams was very good at that, especially at the first of the first one he did,
Force Awakens.
Yeah, because when it showed the Millennium Falcon, just like it was like this giant industrial machine flying through space, and or it was mainly when it was on the planet.
Yeah,
they showed us like, yeah, it's just a big, powerful piece of machinery. That's it became less of a model and more of like, yeah, this could occupy space in the physical world. Whereas the original Star Wars, if you watch those, it's like, oh, they're on a ship, but it's like it's a set, you know. And the only time you really got that was like the Battle of the Death Star, because they were in like little cockpit like fighters. Like that was more like, yeah, these are machines and this is cool. But yeah, J.J. Abrams is very good with like space and making things seem very industrial. So the guy who did this movie did a good job, and the other guy who's really good at that is the guy who did District 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a real sense of like machinery and stuff with him. It's like, yeah, that'd be that walking robot that would actually be very dangerous just to stand near. You know, it's like it's destructive on its own without and shit.
In my mind, maybe the best, but it probably requires a rewatch, was Pacific Rim.
Yeah,
that did scale on like such a great measure,
which was actually like not possible to do before like the 90s, 2000s. That's, you just couldn't do it. You just accepted what they could do as like, these were the technical limitations of the time.
Yeah.
It's like the only thing that broke that mold was like Star Wars in the 80s and maybe Star Trek, especially like the Wrath of Khan. Like the Battle of the Matara Nebula raised the scale on that a lot, where it's like, oh, we have to do better and better and better each time. because remember the motion picture, like the ships look cool, but they were just long shots of the ships flying by. They were always this way and that way, but they never really like showed them as like, yeah, it's just a giant piece of machinery that can be destroyed, that can do a lot of damage like that.
Yeah, I think one of the great scale things in Star Trek was in A Voyage Home when they have it like they have the sea ship trying to get the whales and it hits the cloaked bird of prey and then it
and it bounces off the air and you realize it's like, oh, that's
and then it uncloaks and you see the scale of it. And the guys in the ship are like, oh my god.
And in the Star Trek universe, that is a scout class.
Yeah, that's a small ship.
Yeah, that's the only reason that they survived combat with the Enterprise was the Enterprise only had 4 guys on it. 4 senior citizens versus like Captain Krug. Like, but that was never supposed to fight the bit. Of course, I like the actual. I wish they would have filmed the actual story behind that. Because like the Romulans always everything was a bird. That was like their theme.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be a Romulan ship.
Yeah.
That Krug stole because he was just such a badass. They're like special commando Klingons, and it's like we're stealing a cloaked ship from the Romulans, and and it's a bird of prey. But they just cut that out because they just didn't want to have the budget to film the scenes.
Yeah.
So it was always supposed to be a Romulan ship, never a Klingon ship. And
Well,
you pay attention to the color scheme and stuff. It's like that actually does look more like a Romulan ship.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because the green, the green and stuff like that.
The green and just everything with the bird theme. Because in the original series, even though they used the same ship for both the Klingons and the Romulans always had a bird painted on the ship.
Yeah.
And they had cloaking devices. I don't think the Klingons had cloaking devices unless the Romulans gave them to them. Because the Klingons were not the best at science.
Yeah.
Like the evil Vulcans in the Federation were the best at science, not the Klingons. The Klingons were really good at like dying and violence, but not so much.
But yeah, if you ever read the Star Trek encyclopedias where you just get the pictures of all the ships, you're confused by like, why do they both have a birds of prey, but they're completely different things?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, that's the reason.
Well, in the Star Trek universe, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now, but the Romulans and the Klingons are much smaller than the Federation.
Yeah.
So they have to team up and share technology. Because
okay.
the Klingons are actually good at building very robust ships, but they're not so good at like shields and technology. And that's where the Romulans come in because they're better. Because the Romulan ship that Kirk fought was actually fairly weak, except it had a really awful weapon. But it essentially could not outfight the Enterprise in any other way unless it sprung out of a cloak, fired its plasma torpedo, and then recloaked. And it was which would have worked for the Romulans, but Kirk was just a better tactician. So he finally just figured out because Kirk, it was like a battleship versus a destroyer in the balance of terror. But the destroyer had like a super missile it could fire. And it could disappear, which like that's always handy to be able to disappear. But the damn Federation had the sensors. It's like Spock modify the sensors, or Spock figured out to detect their emissions with their sensors, even when they're cloaked. Because they actually used photon torpedoes as depth charges in the Balance of Terror. Yeah. They never did that before or since in Star Trek. In the Balance of Terror, they did it because it's like, just fire them randomly to detonate at a fixed point, and that will damage the ship. It's like, oh, they're just doing submarine combat.
Well, yeah, because they mentioned that the ship doesn't have shields if it's cloaked. And so if we can slightly damage it, then it'll do some real damage because there's no shields to protect it. So, well, we're sending a probe into space in a galaxy long, long ago. Or in a galaxy far, far, far. A time? No, not... a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. We're sending a probe to say, a super cut of this of scenes from the imperfect collection of Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what one scene from Rogue One are we sending into space?
Well, I'm gonna say the scene where Andor kills the guy in the alley, who may or may not snitch or is too fat to climb the wall. We don't know. Not because it's grandiose, but it is important. It establishes something about this journey because it's going to be dark. And if you like that scene and accept that scene, then you can also follow up and watch the Andor series too, which is a wonderful addition to this movie. Everything in this movie makes sense when you watch that.
Yeah.
About the time and the place. It's only the one character that develops through it, but it shows how the rebellion works, how their backs are against the wall, and how they're all not necessarily good guys either. They're just on the opposite side of an ideal that they believe in. And so, it's not everyone who fights in the rebellion is doing it for noble reasons either. So, or they're driven insane by their philosophies.
Yeah. You can find us on Letterboxd, username VHE. 1 out of 5 stars. What are we giving Rogue One, a Star Wars story?
Definitely a 5. Probably one of 2 Star Wars movies I would. So.
You can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. There you can find listener support. There we have monthly stipend of 99 cents, $4.99 or $99. You cancel any time. You can rate our podcast whatever you want. You can rate us on whatever platform of your choice. Remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. So give us the highest rating. Just juke the stats for us. Help the small man.
Yes.
You can find us at Twitter, Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Blue Sky Social, Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Facebook, Verhoeven Effect. And you can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory and watch both this and that show live and unedited. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nate.